Okay. I'll introduce myself as Michael Kumukauoha. I'm a Native Hawaiian cultural practitioner, a Papakilo Hoku, which is a kahuna of the stars. I'm a kahuna o Maka, which is a kahuna of the cycles in observation of the natural cycles of life. Also a kahuna o Kikai o Limu, Lapa'au. I know 200 limu, different limus and their mixtures for medicine. I was taught when I was a little boy by my grandfather, who was a kahuna, my mother's father, Kino, who was a kahuna of the ocean, and also an uncle of mine, Uncle Walter Kamana. And the reason why we're doing this today is I was released from the kapus in 1994 when I was the religion department chair of Damien Memorial High School. I lived on School Street at the foot of Papa Nui, who is the Papa Nui and Wakea are my 60th great-grandparents by my Mokuauoha or my Hawaiian genealogy. And Papa Nui came in a spiritual form to me and released me from the kapus of what I was taught and said, none of my children will hurt you. And one of the reasons why we're doing this is because hidden treasures cannot be protected if you don't know what the treasure is and you don't know the why it's so important. And with development and with the degradation of our ecology today, it is really important for us to pass on this knowledge, but not in just a very quiet sense of here's the place and here are select people. We need people to understand what the ceremony is about, why they are the way they are, what are the underpinnings of making this so important. And what we see on the Big Island today in 2011 and on Maui, it's drying up and dying. Now, it's not just global warming, because in Ewa, where I live, it was traditionally the plains of Ewa, always dry. It's been raining almost every day in Ewa. Why? Where it hasn't been doing that for 215 years. And yet, on these other islands, it's been dry. And this is one of the spiritual sources that we're trying to convey to the Western population to understand how the cycles and rhythms of nature in our spirituality uphold these cycles. And it's in one word, Ea. Ea is the integrity behind mana. Mana is the natural power of everything that is in life. But Ea is the release of that power. It is that release that fertilizes and makes abundance grow through water. We know in our past culture and history, they talked about the ali'i being descendants of the gods and the stars, walking around, and their totem around them, or their kahili behind them, was the double rainbow. Everywhere they went was the double rainbow. Why? Nobody explained the why. The why is that Ea was being released by the pono malama action that was being taken by the ali'i, doing the correct thing. That releases Ea. How do you do the correct thing? It's in the word malama, to respect. To respect the spiritual deities behind every one of our tea leaves or plants or animals or creatures. There stands an aumakua guardian. If you are in communication with that aumakua, you are listening to what they're saying. They're telling you what you need to know. What this plant is producing, why it's producing what it's producing, and what specific part of the plant will heal you, and how to go about bringing that healing part of the plant to the human body. So everybody wanted to know, how do Lapa'au kahunas go about coming through finding what they find as far as healing remedies and medicines? Well, they don't go around testing every poisonous thing and dying all over the place. They go into prayer, and by going into prayer, they see the aumakuas behind plants, animals, and fishes. And what they do is, in that kuka, in the communication, what's being passed on is, oh yes, you see this flower is yellow. And this means that the sap of this plant is good for the lungs. And you see my cousin over here with the red mallow, his flower is orange, and that plant is good for the skin. Right there, the Aumakua, the protective guardian spirit of the plant, has taught the kahuna what the proper practice is and where the medicine is, without even testing the plant. So when we come to our cultural practitioners and what we're doing, we're trying to explain to people the why and the how. Because what has been lost over the years is, as it's been kapu or hidden or made sacred, this information never gets down to the people and they don't know the why. So we can't protect these important features and important underpinnings of our health, well-being, and salvation in the natural cycles of nature that give us our food, our water, and that we can take care, malama, and be good stewards. All of us are kahus. Kahus are keepers, stewards of the natural cycle, kahuna omaka. So our Iwikupunao today in Maui are being disturbed and just dug up and put on the side. And we noticed Maui's drying up. Military is building things below the ground on Haleakala, and they're building things for observatories above. And as we go up to Haleakala today, in December, the 19th of December, today's the 21st of December, but when we went up a few days ago, we noticed that the hiaka ferns were all dead and dried up there, that the ea has not been released. So when we do our cultural practice and we do our chants and we show the respect, the ea is released, and it's been raining since the time we went up there and did the cultural practice. And people have to look at this because it is something that has been here for over 2,300 years, talked about in the Kumulipo Maimoko Auhau family chant that tells of these things, but has to be explained so people know the importance. Clarapana here in Maui is trying to mitigate with the Iwikupunao to do the pono thing and to build a po'uhonua of a cultural center, which Maui does not have, to explain these important value sets that are the underpinning of what allowed 1.2 million people to utilize the ocean as their primary source of protein without collapsing or polluting the basic species of life that lived there, or the monk seals thrived under 1.2 million people utilizing the same source, protein source foundation in the food cycle, which is the ocean. So why have we gone wrong today? Why have the monk seals starved? Because people who've come in have pushed back the lessons of the konahiki system of resting, of the system and value sets that we have to malama and to be kahus, good stewards of the ocean and of the land, and to protect the land. And by doing so, we protect ourselves. So in this ceremony that we're going to do, the ceremony is called puakala. Puakala means the prayer of the kala. Now, limu kala is something very special to us, especially for kahunas, because the limu kala has the mana and the ea to take in anything that's bad and release the good. So what we're going to do is we go on site to the properties that Clarapana has been mitigating with the owners and the Iwikupunao. When you disturb an Iwikupunao, you break the sacred space around them. There's a sacred boundary. And we see that if you go to Arlington National Park or any of your Western cemeteries, you have that sacred space that is created. No different than our indigenous populations here in Hawaii. But they're not being respected. Would you go to Arlington and build a Safeway there? Would you go to Arlington and build a housing complex there? No. But our sacred space for our Iwi or our buried dead, that is what has been happening. So there is a disruption, and the bones of our dead are receptacles for the ha, the spirit that comes back. It is their touchstone back to this world. We in Hawaii call it ikepapalua, to be able to walk in two worlds. Papa, what you stand on, your foundation. Ike, what you know. Lua, two worlds that you know. This world, the tangible, and the corporeal, and then the non-corporeal spiritual world, the Lua, the second world, the dream realm. So if you don't understand that both are important in achieving balance in this realm, then you miss a very important value set that we have as Hawaiians to keep pono, what is sacred. And what we're going to do is we're going to ala'a, to keep sacred, anoho, where you live, apa'a, the foundation to stand firm on. This is our value set that we're trying to transmit and explain so people understand why it's so important. Why is it a value? We want the harmony of those who have passed on before us to be at peace while we try to increase the opportunity of abundance for our families, for our society, but in a pono way that is non-destructive, non-polluting, but gives back and increases the ability of life to exist for all creatures, not just in lieu of mankind. This is what is called living in balance. It's a value set. It's a value set we incorporated into the word konahiki, of being good stewards of the land, to malama the land. But not only the land, but there is a spiritual value set that continues, and that we recognize that Ike, what we know, Papa, the foundation, Lua, of two worlds. Ike, Papa, Lua. And that's a value set that we are trying to transmit in this ceremony today of the Pule Kala. The Kala, as I mentioned, is the limu, sargassum limu, that we're using the limu Kala Lau Nui Nui. Unfortunately, in our trying to get the limu Kala Lau Nui Nui, we found that this was the only sprig we could find. Right now on Oahu, there are tons of this growing, but here in Maui, there isn't. And that's an indicator sign that there's trouble. Because as a kahuna omaka, this limu needs a lot of fresh water to be able to thrive and increase. And what this is telling me is the fresh water is being diverted. And so what for millennium, of balance, we know that there's imbalance here in the development and in the use of water, fresh water, the treasure of life, where the magic begins. So in our ceremony, we had hoped to make 40 limu leis for each of the Iwikupunao, the bones of the dead of our ancestors. But unfortunately, this is all we have. So in this Pule Kala ceremony, we were going to have 40 leis. And this particular seaweed takes what we call kamaha. Kamaha is that heavy burden, the aue, aue, I'm in pain, I'm in hurt. It transmits that into the mana behind here, goes into this, and then we can take it away. We can use it as a sponge, as a receptacle to take it away from our Iwikupunao, our buried ancestors, put it into this plant, and let it go to the kaiuli, the deepest part of the sea, to disintegrate and be no more. But unfortunately, we have to make do with what we're given. So we're going to use this as part of the ceremony. We're going to have to break up this limu kala lau nui nui into pieces. We're going to put the pieces where we know the Iwikupunao are, and we're going to give a chant. And our chant is going to ask Kiakua of the darkness, Kiakua of the light, to come, and we're going to ask to take all the pilikia, all that trouble, all the kaumaha. And kaumaha is, when you have that heaviness, we're going to mihi, or ask for forgiveness. In ha'aha, humility, we're going to ask for the forgiveness of our Iwikupunao on the other side. And then we're going to ala'a, to make sacred again. Anoho, where you live, or you are implanted in the womb of the earth in your fetal position. Okay, anoho, where you are, and pa'a, to be strong, even in this new state of your life, in the other side of Ike Papalua. We are here to assist, not to burden you. And so we want to make kapu again, the sacred site, by respect. So this is part of the Pule Kala ceremony. Now what we're doing is, to make it sacred again, we have to do what is called kapu kapu. We have to bring back the kapu, the sacredness, to the site. And we're doing that because Claire feels that in mitigation she can get that site for a pu'uhonua. A pu'uhonua is a city of refuge. It's a place, it's a temple of refuge. The temple of refuge that we're looking on is that by the knowledge that you get, as Oprah Winfrey says, you know better, you can do better. There's no excuses. So if we teach people the proper way to do things and they know better, then awe, it comes to their mind, you know, there's a better way of doing this. And the Hawaiians have this saying, ho'opiha, ikalua oka ayunaina, to feed the pit of anger. What do you feed the pit of anger? Well, when you're hungry for something, and you're really, really hungry, you get very angry. But when you've been given a beautiful meal, and you're able to consume it, it appeases the anger. So, in all kahunas, when we do offerings of ho'okupu, which we have, the ho'okupu that we have in here is the limu lauoho o Pele. And the limu lauoho o Pele is a sacred limu that is given to our goddess Pele. And also we have opihi inside of here. And that's the ho'opiha ikalua o ka ainaina, to show respect. We feed, you know, in the Bible it says man does not live by bread alone, which means that the feeding the pit of anger is not only feeding our bodies, but we must feed our soul. Ike papalua. To know that your Ike of two worlds, you have to feed your soul. So we cannot forget our ancestors of the past. And in doing so, we're feeding their soul. Because we're bringing harmony, as we just finished Pearl Harbor Day. Those who sacrificed their lives for others, we came and honored them by a memorial service to remember that they counted in their life, that they were somebody very important to us. And as we do it in Western culture, why do we forget that our indigenous value sets have no less value in taking care of our Iwikupunao? What we've made today for everyone who's going to participate, we have the tea leaf, which is the symbol for lono, keakua. And we also have the Hawaiian salt, which is a value set for all cultures. And the Hawaiian salt that we have basically signifies when you salt something, you preserve. You can preserve it. Okay? You preserve life. You preserve food to eat. Ike ho'opiha ikalua o ka ainaina. But spiritually, there's a preservation of life. And it's symbolized in this, where we make a tea leaf. And what we do is, and everybody's done this in school, you take the tea leaf and you put Hawaiian salt on the tea leaf and you ha it and you say kia kua koma mai. And then what you do is you wrap the tea leaf as you would a football, one of those little footballs that they make the kicks, and you wrap it and you fold it over end as you go back and forth, end over end. Okay. And this makes a packet for your Hawaiian salt. And then you fold in the last part of your inside here to seal it off, to get your little packet. Okay. And that's what we have here. And so we give this, and the reason why we do this is because when you go to a site, you don't want to have unintended consequences. Everybody must be protected. We don't know, our guardian spirits are aumakuas, in Western idea of guardian angels standing behind you. You don't know who's standing behind the person. There could be a demon. There could be someone who's an ancestor. And so when people gather, we don't know the history of different clans, whether there's a war going on from the past on someone else. So to avoid unintended consequences, we make sure that everyone is protected. And if you have an identical twin or a twin, you must take one for them. And that is in proxy for them. Otherwise, they will be hit because your DNA, which is your aka, is their aka too, and will reach out to them and grab them. So we mentioned this to you because how would you know if we don't tell you? So a lot of this has been kept huna or secret, and we're opening this up so that people will know. In here, we bring, in my Kumukauoha, my 20th great-grandmother is Tutu Pele. People know her as the volcano goddess, but she was a real person. She was a very real person, like Vakea and like Papa Nui. Her spirit still lives today and is revered throughout the islands. Inside here, we have a very special tea leaf. By the way, Tutu's tea leaf is the black tea leaf. And the black tea leaf is a very special tea leaf because it is a very, very dark purple. But then when you put it into the flames, it turns green. And it becomes like a green tea leaf. But inside this little packet, this little special packet that we have, you can see there's a feather coming from the top. This feather comes from Lake Waiau from September 25th, 2011. Tutu Pele, she possessed a white owl at Lake Waiau on that day when we went up to do our cultural practice with Claire and Hank Fergustrom. And what happened was Tutu, as our guardian, she possessed in Hawaiian, that's called akua noho, where her spirit went into the spirit of a real white owl. And inside here is the feather of a white owl, and it has a smoky little feather that it's not like your normal feathers. And this is called la oho o pele hulu manu. It's like a smoky feather of protection. You see, la oho o pele is Pele's hair. So it's like whiffs of smoke coming out, little puffs of smoke. Her la oho is, I give my separation of my hair in my kino lau body form of the white owl to you for protection. So we're bringing her kino lau body form of protection in this ceremony, in this sacred feather, okay, this white feather. And we've chosen someone special, Robin, to take this and to hold it during our ceremony as Tutu's presence in this ceremony for our Pule, Kala, and our Kapu Kapu ceremony. What we have here is our Olena root. And in our Olena root, it has the mana or frequency of taking away the anger. To feed the pit of anger. This is the spiritual anger we want to cleanse, because we're going to do a cleansing with the Hawaiian salt for the preservation of life, but also to preserve the harmony, the malama that we have, that we recognize how important our Iwikupunao is, and how important it is for you to understand what this is all about. We also have gotten the waters, the sacred waters, of the different rivers in this ahupua that we've incorporated into the ceremony. And we will be mixing it on site, because when we do a Hawaiian cultural practice, whether it's an ava ceremony or whatever, where we are in the ahupua, we always want to take the vai, the power, the treasure from that site. We don't want to bring it from another place, because we're talking about the mana and releasing the ea, the integrity of the activator spark, to let it generate throughout us. When we do our cultural practice of Hawaii out in the ocean to go and pray, when we do it correctly, we activate that ea in the water, and the entire space around us for about 30 feet will become warm like a jacuzzi, because that energy is being released from Ike, Papa, Lua, from that world into this, or from this world into that. And that's very important for us to understand, so that we respect the harmony that has to exist in this world, the concrete, tangible, and in the non-tangible, spiritual, non-corporeal world. Thank you. Okay. So from this, we'll load up and go on site.